Hey everybody, Evan Kirstel here. Super excited to talk about the future of wireless and optical communications with Anders Storm, CEO at Sivers Semiconductors. Anders, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Thank you for having me, Ivan.
Well, thanks for being here. You're so innovative, and I'm really intrigued by what you're doing at Sivers. But before that, maybe introduce yourself and a little
Yeah,
bit about the mission and the team at Sivers.
yeah. So my name is Anders Storm. I've been with Sivers now. It's going to be 9 years soon. I just passed 7 years as the CEO for the company. I have over sort of 3 decades of worked in the wireless and telecom industry in many different areas, and mostly in the wireless business areas in the ecosystem. I've been with Sony Ericsson for many years. We're
Hmm.
working on their smartphone sites, for example. So that's about me. Sivers is a company that's focused on two business areas, as you mentioned. We have the wireless area where we focus mostly on 5G high frequencies, millimeter wave in that sense, and we also have the same in Satcom, which is going really really well over the last year. And then we have our photonics business where we do lasers for different type of sensors for consumer electronics. We have a Fortune 100 that we work with for about 5 years now, who invested $16 million in developing some sensors. And then we also have that was actually in the Wall Street Journal this week around
Hmm.
lasers, how they can be used connecting GPUs in the future instead of electricity. So that is really exciting other area within sort of data center type of applications as well.
Oh, wow. Well, as an electrical engineer by education and a tech geek, I really want to dive into those areas. Super exciting. So tell us about the journey. You're a fabless
Mhm.
semiconductor
Yep.
company. The semiconductors are in the news every day now, as you no doubt
Yeah.
know, for many reasons, including geopolitical ones and tech trend reasons. Tell us about your journey over
Yeah,
those 7 years. It's kind of an exciting time to be in your space.
absolutely. So let me go back even further. I mean, the company was actually sort of founded in 1951, actually,
Oh my
and
goodness.
been in many different shapes and forms. So it was actually owned by Philips for a while, which is
Mm.
now NXP. But in the 1970s, there was a buyout, and we were doing voltage control oscillators and radars, high frequency stuff. But about 10 years ago, a friend of mine took over the CEO role, and we started looking at what we can do with the company with these high frequencies and the knowledge we had. So we started that journey and actually have sort of revamped the whole company since then. We started doing RFICs and beamformers and stuff for millimeter wave applications. And at that time, we also listed ourselves at Nasdaq First North here in Sweden. And now, recently, 2 years ago, we also listed the company at the Nasdaq main market here in Stockholm. We're now listed as a mid cap company with about $150 million market cap. And when we started the journey 7 years ago, when I took over as the CEO, we've sort of worked really hard to create both grow the revenue. So we started at that point, I think, with about $2 million of old products that we were selling, and we this year we have an outlook of selling about $25 million. It's like a CAGR over 47% over these 7 years. We also have worked a lot on getting out there in the listed market and be there. So we've gone from 2,000 shareholders to over 22,000 shareholders. We added a lot of institutional investors. We went from 0% of those up to 21% of the ownership now, ranging from very large pension funds here in Sweden to smaller sort of investors in Switzerland and others, but we don't really have any large investors, institutions in the US yet. We however, have a venture fund, Kairos Ventures, who owns about 10% after the acquisition we did last year or 2 years ago, basically with Mixcom out of New Jersey. So that's basically a bit of the journey, but it's, of course, it's been a fantastic period to build a company, and also challenging over the last couple of years, I could say.
Yeah, I'd love to dive into that and your sort of supply chain and go to market. But let's talk about the mega trends. You're riding the wave, literal wave of 5G and satellite communications and silicon photonics, the next wave of broadband.
Yeah.
You picked the three fastest growing areas. So how do you capitalize on that? You have a lot of big competition as well. So it's quite a job you have ahead of you.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, the reason for that is, of course, that we have really strong teams behind all of this. We have about
Mm,
28 PhDs working within the company,
mm,
coming from these kind of areas. And as you say, we are fabless, but only in one of our legs. The other leg actually is a fab that we
mm.
acquired in out of Glasgow in 2017.
Oh,
So
okay.
there we have an indium phosphide 4-inch fab, 3.5 compound. So that leg is, of course, and that kind of capacity in the current state. I think it was in the Microwave Journal where they said that indium phosphide is the holy grail of consumer electronics in the future, for example. So we have a very good position with sort of the basic technology we develop, and due to that, our strength has really come forward in all of these areas. So in the wireless area, beamforming has become one of the major things for both the sort of 5G networks and track-to-train applications that we're strong in. So, for
Mm,
example, we have a customer who's rolling out now in California from San Francisco to San Diego. They're sort of on the Caltrain. They're going to have these antennas on the roof and base stations along the train track to deliver gigabit speeds to the trains, and that you need beamformers to follow the train in very high
mm.
speeds. The same thing with the satellites now. You have LEO satellites flying over our heads in high speeds. You need to follow them. You don't want to have mechanical solutions for that. So both those areas is sort of our most important things in the wireless business, doing really good tech around beamformers and that technology, where we work closely with global foundries, for example. And then
Okay.
in our optical business, it's all about doing the best kind of lasers. And we've coming, back from, we were doing 310 nanometer lasers for fiber to the home applications already 15 years ago. And now we've sort of increased and improved all of that into doing, for example, arrays with 18 and 16 lasers in them, where you can sort of connect them into the data center. And we work with companies like AR Labs, who are doing, optical I/O, as it's called, between the GPUs, and they are funded by NVIDIA or Intel and others. Really, really interesting area, and that's going to be a big breakthrough in that in the coming years, I think. And then on top of
Yeah.
that, we've been working, doing some really cool lasers. Unfortunately, we can't really say what they're used for, but that is with a
Mm,
very large Fortune 100 customer in the US, that actually are doing something for consumer electronics. So there's both an emitter and a detector that can do some really interesting measurements. And that solution we sort of worked for now for 5 years with them, and they've invested $60 million, and that's something we're just waiting now around the corner to get sort of when is that going to go into volume. So that's a very exciting, extremely large project for us. So we've been able to do this thanks to, as I mentioned, all the really great team behind all of this technology.
that's wonderful to hear. It's also about the ecosystem and all the partnerships that you've built. Those are fundamental to your go-to-market. So how do you work with organizations like IMEC,
Yeah.
the amazing European lab? You mentioned AIR Labs shaping the silicon photonics landscape in the data center. Seems like partnerships are really fundamental to your go-to-market.
Absolutely, and I think I learned this when I worked for Sony Ericsson way back. We were doing,
Mhm.
the first smartphones with touchscreen and color
I
screen.
remember them well. Yes.
Yeah. I was the head project manager for the P900 at that point, which had, the silvery phone with the flip, and we had the color screens and cameras and everything. And there's not one company who can build that device. You need to sort of partner up, and there's going to be a screen, there's going to be a camera, it's going to be, a touch screen, all of those things. So we've taken the same sort of thought into what we're doing. I mean, we can ship a beamformer, but by itself it's not much. Or we can ship a laser chip that is even further back in the value chain, but without the guys around us. So we created in the wireless part, we in Mobile World Congress in Barcelona this year, we had a big demo with both NXP and Intel in 2 different applications for millimeter wave, one for India and one in general, with sort of 272 split O-RAN solution for that kind of stuff. And then with the photonics piece, we worked, as you say, with IMEC to create the possibility and the revolution really to get silicon photonics working, because that has been an issue. How do you connect the indium phosphide lasers on top of the silicon? And we created some IP there, as well as done some patents where you can sort of place these together with OSM America, who can place this with 500 nanometer precision and waveguides basically that can connect them. And that has been a big breakthrough. And I think that's one of the really fantastic reasons behind our success with AR Labs and other companies here as well, that we can actually provide this kind of thing. And we're actually next week demoing again with AR Labs in ECOC in Glasgow, another 4 terabit of data between GPUs. So that's a really sort of complete breakthrough, and with 90% less power consumption than electrical I/O. So that's sort of a game changer for the whole data center world. And even, as the article in Wall Street Journal is talking about, generative AI in the future are, their clusters communicating with tens of thousands GPUs, and they need to communicate without losses. And this is really going to change that. So that's something we're really proud of, that we've been able to, together with AR Labs, get that to the market.
That is amazing. Yeah, we're entering the terabyte era, right? And what we're doing today and the way we're doing optical and interconnect seems to me has to be reinvented for the next era. I was at an
we
NTT
soon get
Labs.
to 10 terabit of data there. I mean, we're doing the 16 array now together with AR, and that's going to be, almost 10 terabit of data speeds, which is sort of a bit of the holy grail to do the next generation generative AI solution. So
that is fantastic. So when do you think we'll see, high speed terabit transmission in data centers using light instead of electricity? Sounds like science fiction, but it's not too many years away, right?
No, and actually Intel and AR Labs demoed FPGAs just a couple of weeks ago that is sort of integrated with their chiplets and doing completely optical I/O between 2 FPGAs. So the ecosystem is now just waiting, for the big FPGA, CPU, GPU guys to sort of get their stuff mounted onto the optical chiplets. And that is going to happen now in the coming 18 months, and then accelerate heavily in 2 years, I would say.
Oh, that's fantastic. Let's shift to wireless a little bit. Millimeter wave, high speed, ultra high speed 5G is been a little bit slow coming here in the US, but the time is now and the need is now. We just need the capacity. All these kids with their iPhones, we got to keep up. What are you seeing in the market in terms of adoption of millimeter wave and the promise that's to be delivered? I think it seems to be right on the cusp of reality.
Definitely. I think you maybe have seen Super Bowl recently. They used millimeter wave all over the arena, and that was a big success, if I understand it correctly. So the more dense areas, the more you need a millimeter wave, and basically. I think we started in the wrong end in the US with first, rolling out millimeter wave, and then we got the lower bands, and that sort of has flipped everything a little bit. Actually, the Chinese done it in the right way. So I think we start seeing that more and more now. It's still not sort of in the big volumes, and they're actually gone down a little bit in volumes for these things due to the things in the US specifically. But now even India is. We're working on a project there with Intel and a company called YSIG that was on Mobile World Congress now here in Las Vegas, and we're also seeing that these things in type enterprise private network things where you use the unlicensed band, which is quite interesting, as I mentioned, for the track to train applications, which we're very excited about. There's 3 places now, a high-speed train in Spain who has adopted it. They adopted it in the UK and with the Caltrain in California, and that's just the start. People wants to go traveling by train, be connected, stream, everything. And then we have a small company in California as well. It's a customer called Airwine, which are doing cable replacement with this kind of stuff. So they can do gigabit speeds instead of, all the 100 meg Cat3 cable or Cat2, whatever we have in the walls. You need to go to gigabit there, and instead of pulling all of those out and putting new cables in, you can actually put their solutions up in the roof, and you can suddenly have a ring network with gigabit speeds just in a day, and without sort of ruining the building. So that's another way of doing it. And so all of those sort of small niches are growing and happening, even if there has been some sort of delay in the bigger market as the US and with Verizon and those kind of guys, definitely. But we also see more in Europe, but still a bit slower on the operator end, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I was here at the T-Mobile for Business booth, and we they had a live private 5G network in production at the booth, connecting all the devices and endpoints. And there was a little Ericsson unit, in the rack there that ran this private 5G network with its own radio on the top of the booth, and this is being shipped to customers now. So it's no longer the future. The future is kind of arrived for private 5G, enterprise wide 5G, putting it in, like you said, stadiums and mines and hospitals and all kinds of interesting places. And there, the need for capacity is just off the hook. As they send files across the enterprise and beyond. So that's super exciting. Let's talk satellite. How did you get into the satellite space, and the idea of doing satellite telephony with just an off-the-shelf smartphone was kind of a dream for many years, and it's being demonstrated now. It's being used now in many ways for emergency services. On the Apple iPhone 15.
Exactly.
The future looks really bright.
Yeah. So we started off as a little bit in the other end, working with the really high end products within sort of ground terminals. So with the acquisition of Mixcom, we got a very strong team out of sort of New Jersey who've been working with a company called Allspace in the UK. So they have a terminal which is quite unique, that it can connect, LEO, MEO, and geostationary satellite at the same time without breaking. They have multiple sort of connections at the same time.
Wow.
And they're working with SCS, US Army, US Marine, and so forth. And all of that is now coming to fruition. We just got our biggest order ever for beamformers, $5 million here in September. Early September. So that is just now rolling out as well. And that's connected to, the overall, everybody is spending money, including Elon, and then shooting up more satellites. They need ground terminals to receive this. And also the macroeconomic situation with the war in Ukraine and everything. Everybody wants this in the military, especially, they need to be connected as everybody else. So that's where we started, and now we won a couple of projects. This is the biggest one. Then we have a company in Poland who's doing similar things called Thorium Space, and then we're working with the more secret sat operator who has their own satellite that we're also doing an array with now. So, and that seems to be a fantastic market. It's a lot of chips per unit. I think we sell something like just below 2,000 chips or beamformers per ground terminal. So there's a lot of content from us in every one we sell. So that is sort of what's going to drive the continued growth now. We're looking at 100% growth this year, and we can look at really good growth in the future in these areas as well.
Well, congratulations on that. Let's talk a little bit about geopolitics. I saw you referenced in relation to the CHIPS Act about bringing manufacturing and IP to North America. How are you seeing that evolve moving forward?
Yeah, so we made a decision that we are consciously, working quite close to, the Western world in that sense. So both European based and US based now. We have, we are in a couple of consortia in different. We're in this big consortia in Massachusetts around the sort of CHIP Act. We're in other EU-based funding projects as well, and all of that is sort of being connected to getting close to the funding, and also looking at the possible, build out of our fab. We're looking at, CHIP Act money and so forth. We recently also got some DARPA money for a project with a company in California. So all of those things are definitely driving semiconductors for us. And even if we hear, companies having, weaker and there is profit warnings and stuff because of there's so much need for emptying the warehouses with chips already there. But we are in a phase where we're actually building up our warehouses more, and we are, selling, going from a lot of development into volume now. So we don't have really volumes out there, and due to that, we can actually we don't have to care so much about that issue, and that has really helped us getting to the growth. We're at 91% this year so far, the first half. And wow. And that is really encouraging to see. And then, getting these big orders. So I think we got over $32 million in orders over the last 12 months. So
onwards and upwards. Well, congratulations on that. We're all traveling a lot more these days. I'll be at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. I'll be at CES coming up in January. What are you looking forward to? Any trips personally, professionally?
Yeah, we have ECOC next week in Glasgow, and that's European sort of optical conference. I might go there. It's a lot of things now before the Q3 report. So, but our team is there, and we're gonna demo the 4 terabit of data. We've had some people now in the Mobile World Congress in Las Vegas, but otherwise the biggest for us has always been, Mobile World Congress in Barcelona. It was huge last year and a fantastic event now again after the pandemic's gone. And otherwise, I'm going a lot to the US. I was the whole of July in US this year, both from in New York to meet institutional investors, but also a lot in California to meet our customers, where we have a very strong customer base in the US. And I think now we had about 50-60% of the sales in the US, and the rest is in Europe. So it really needs to travel to all of those kind of events. And of course, OFC is in San Diego in March, just before Mobile World Congress. So I hopefully can go there as well.
Well, busy schedule. Thanks for what you do. Congrats again on the success and help getting us into the terabyte era.
Thank you.
It's an exciting ride, Anders.
Yeah.
And thanks for your time and your insights. And thanks everyone for watching. Reach out to Anders or Sivers Semiconductors with any questions or comments. Always welcome, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.